We've been on many adventures together, some on water, and others on land. But nothing would quite prepare us for 2020, what would turn out to be one of the best and worst years of our life. For myself, my partner Dan, our daughter Skylar, and our cat Pack, it was our first full year living aboard a narrowboat, and, like some of the best adventures, not everything went to plan. We'd already started learning the ropes, having bought the boat in 2019, but this voyage would be different. We were no longer under the watchful eye of my dad as we set off on our own for the first time. Starting in Worcester City and armed with nothing more than our trusty map books, we set off on our way to Birmingham. It was freezing cold and the beginning of January, which made our progress slow. On the way we had to contend with icy waters and difficult conditions, but it wasn't all bad. We made friends along the way. We also met floating traders and got a glimpse of what life would be like come the summertime when the canals were busy again. With our battery situation worsening by the day and no use of our lights, electric or water pump, our first winter aboard a narrowboat was nothing like we had imagined it would be. But with spring around the corner, we knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel, or at least until lockdown began. We were both still commuting to work at this point, which for me would involve a 100-mile round trip via train and car. With news of the lockdown, these long commutes would soon be a thing of the past. Adjusting to life on a boat with a small child was difficult enough, but the lockdown would bring with it fresh challenges. Fortunately, we would have one less thing to worry about as we managed to successfully install our very own leisure batteries, providing us with light, water, and electric. We had left Birmingham by this point and were in the outskirts when lockdown started. It was here that we were given an opportunity that was as incredible as it was unexpected. Up on the first day of lockdown to a message from the BBC. At first we thought it was a joke and couldn't believe that they really wanted to feature us on BBC Midlands Today. Although a television appearance wasn't exactly on either of our bucket lists, it was quite special to watch back. Shortly afterwards, we were also invited to do a radio interview with BBC Hereford and Worcester radio station.
Have had to cut their narrowboat cruise short because of the coronavirus. 26-year-old Dan Butler and 24-year-old Georgia Howe set off from Herefordshire last July to tour the West Midlands, but Georgia and Dan from Herefordshire stuck in a canal boat at Alvechurch halfway through their cruise of the West Midlands.
With the excitement of television and radio interviews out of the way, we set about on keeping ourselves occupied in lockdown. Like so many others, our lives had been turned upside down with virtual working, homeschooling and social distancing, but little did we know that the year was about to take a turn for the worst. On the 5th of May 2020, and at the height of a global pandemic, my mother passed away. It was about 11 o'clock at night when I awoke to a phone call from my mum's partner and to words that I never thought I would hear. She had drowned in the River Wye, having fallen from the old bridge in Hereford. The river levels were too low, and despite the attempts of passers-by, nothing could be done. Stricken by grief and stuck in lockdown, this was a really difficult time for me. And although I loved living by the water, it was difficult to shake the feeling of unease that I now had. The loss was somehow made more difficult by the lockdown, not being able to go anywhere, and not being able to see close friends or family at a time when you need them most. As we were still sorting out the boat, most of our possessions, including photographs, were in a storage locker. A 100-mile round trip to get photographs in lockdown wouldn't be deemed essential travel, so I had to make do with the few I had on the boat. COVID also affected the funeral, which was a small gathering of about 10 people. We had to sit 2 meters apart, so I couldn't even be close to Dan during this time. He was, however, able to support me in the months that followed. By this point, we had secured a spot at the visitor moorings in Bourneville, thanks to Mark and Debs from the Weldeck Diaries. We were lucky enough to meet them when cruising past, and they kindly let us take their spot. And it was here that we discovered that Waterways World magazine would be featuring my article and some of our photographs in the June edition. When the lockdown ended, we were able to cruise again and continued along the Birmingham Canal network. Although we had been continuously cruising up until this point, we secured a mooring spot earlier in the year, and it looked like we'd finally be able to get there. Although the canals seemed quieter than usual, we really enjoyed the few weeks we were able to cruise during the summer in 2020. We continued to explore new canals, taking in the incredible sights and scenery on the way. We documented these travels here on YouTube, the highs, the lows, and the completely unexpected. We finally arrived at our mooring spot in August, just in time for a very special birthday. It was a busy month for us, not only celebrating Skylar's birthday, but also being invited to take part in a live radio interview with BBC West Midlands radio station.
This afternoon we are talking living on the water today. We'll be hearing from a couple from the West Midlands who said goodbye to rented accommodation to take up life on the waterways across the West Midlands. Georgia, thank you so much. I hope it's a mild winter, and congratulations, you've discovered a way of life that suits you perfectly. And thank you very much indeed for your time. You mentioned that you document your life on YouTube. How do people follow you, or at least look at some videos? What do they search for on YouTube?
So if you search the Liverboard family, Liverboard, all one word in our name, and we can be found on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Okay, they'll find them. Thank you so much for your time, Georgia. Happy sailing.
Thank
all the
you.
best. Thank you.
As autumn arrived on the canal, so did an unexpected visitor. Some of you may already know the story about the ducks, but if you don't, then please take this opportunity to subscribe, as we'll be sharing a vlog about it very soon. It's a story of love, loss, and how Dan tried to fight off a flock of seagulls. Shortly after this miraculous discovery, we made one that was less exciting. A small hole like this, caused by water damage from leaking pipes, may not look like much, but it was the beginning of about a month's worth of DIY, which for us spells disaster. Despite Dan's questionable use of power tools, we managed to piece the boat back together, and just in time for Halloween. With lockdown lifted, we made the most of it and took Skylar on some socially distanced days out. After a really tough year, and with Christmas just around the corner, we thought we'd treat ourselves to a 12-volt fridge from Shoreline. Now this may not sound very exciting, but after a long, hot summer on board with no fridge whatsoever, we couldn't wait to get rid of the ice bucket. 2020, however, really did prove to be a roller coaster of a year. Every time something good would happen, it seemed like something bad would follow, and November was no exception. By this point, we'd made the difficult decision to give up our mooring spot. Having been in and out of work all year, it was no longer financially viable, and we also wanted to be closer to a train station so that Dan could get back into work. We moved to Kidderminster ahead of the lockdown, where we were reunited with my dad. Although this location was more convenient for work, it proved to be a lot more dangerous too. While Dan was at work, a group of youths were causing trouble nearby. They confronted me, kicked the window, and smashed my dad's window. It was a shocking experience and not what we needed just before Christmas. Despite this and the other challenges we faced in December, we still managed to celebrate the new year. It was at this point that we reflected on the year that had passed and decided to share our highs and lows in this video with you. We set up our YouTube channel in January 2020, mainly so that friends and family could see our adventures and watch Skylar growing up. We could never have imagined that our story would reach so many people, and with over 1,600 subscribers to date, we want to thank each and every one of you. We thank you for every one of your likes and comments and hope that you will continue to enjoy our voyages. We wish you all a happy and healthy 2021.